talking about how there were people that she's known for years, that she's met their families and everything, and then all of a sudden, you know, when these hurricanes happen, all of a sudden they're talking about, you know, say some prayers for my cousin in Puerto Rico, or say some prayers for my family in Texas. It's like, where did all these people come from all of a sudden? Like, this idea of like being connected to a tragedy, like, why do we always want to feel this sense of personal connection to a tragedy? Like, what do we get from that, from being associated with tragedy? You know, what value do we feel when people feel sorry for us? You know what I mean? Like, that, just that idea of, instead of attaching yourself to tragedy and finding definition and personal value in tragedy, just thinking about joy and focusing in on joy and focusing in on the happiness, that we are so identified so deeply with this concept of sadness and ultimate disaster that we're willing to directly tie ourselves to it for the sake of getting attention and compassion from others. It's just a weird thing to think about, like attaching yourself to something that doesn't really belong to you. Like, why do we feel this sense of belonging in something that's so...
There's a flip side to it also, though, where when you attach yourself to something, to a tragedy you're not really a part of, you no longer feel a need to respond to the tragedy.
Yeah.
It removes your responsibility to respond to someone else in hurting, because now you're the person hurting.
Now you're a victim
to respond
too.
To you.
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. So what is it? What is that thing that makes us want to attach ourselves to these tragic moments? Like, I feel like it might really be that. That might really be that.
It might be selfishness.
Yeah.
It's you see as tragedy, but your worldview is so built around yourself that you can't see a tragedy occurring, people in need, without having to contextualize it in the context of you.
Yes. Yeah, that's really true. That's really true. Or even like when you have those people who compete for tragic moments, like, oh man, my husband just got in a car accident, he has a broken leg. Yeah, I got in a car accident 2 years ago and I almost died. It's like, whoa, since when did this become a competition on who's gone through the most, dire circumstances, who's gone through the most trauma and heartache? You know, it's weird that we attach ourselves and attach value to these moments of sadness. And while they have the ability to kind of build us up and do something else and inspire us to be greater, it's like, don't find definition in that sadness. Like, don't find definition in that disaster. Instead, think about, how do you move past it? How do you contribute and feel better just in building up others, not being selfish, focusing on the greater good, the greater ideal, and not just finding belonging in something that really doesn't even pertain to you. I just think that's so funny that she said that. Like, people find love being connected to a tragedy.
So, here's a thought that's very counterintuitive in a lot of what we hear, but might actually be, halfway applicable.
What?
Just that really you're not important. Like, really. Like, no one really deeply, truly, no strangers care what you've been through. What your struggles do not define the arc of the world. And that should be an incredibly freeing thing.
Yeah.
But for most people, that completely will just upend their entire identity.
Yeah. Because I think in a sense, we're almost naturally self-centered, right? It's our most basic inclination is to focus on self. But like what you just said, I had a boss who was crazy, admittedly. But I remember him saying to me, no one cares about you and your problems. And I remember feeling like, that's so insensitive. How could you say something like that? But in a real way, he's right. Like, how could everyone has their own issues. Everyone has their own level of concern and just worry. So when he said no one cares about you and your issues, it's not to say that what you're going through isn't real. It's more so about saying, like,
welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club. Exactly. Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club.
Don't get stuck in that, because there's other things that you have to do. Like, everybody has their own thing. Everybody has their own something. But that doesn't mean you stop. That doesn't mean that you don't grow, you don't develop. You just got to keep going and maybe find a sense of comfort in knowing that you're not the only one, right?
Social media might be a big part of that.
Yeah.
It teaches you it trains your brain to see the world as yourself and then all the connections around you. And
like, you're the sun and everything else kind of orbits around you.
It's all in your feed.
Yeah.
It's my feed.
Yeah.
This is happening on.
Yeah. Yeah. It really nurtures.
You're one of my friends.
Yeah. It really nurtures that whole idea of this self-centeredness, right? This selfishness, this really kind of like myopic view that like everything is about me, as opposed to thinking greater than that and thinking about, you know, the sense of you're unimportant because there's greater things that you're connected to. It's not just about you and what you're trying to do in your world and your selfies. Selfie, right? That in and of itself is so crazy. The concept of selfie.
I don't know what it is. Just the concept that there is now an entire class of picture that only describes. We have a word for pictures taken by one thing about itself.
Yeah.
And this is a normal thing. This blows my mind every day.
Yeah. Ultimate vanity.
But what is it's like the selfie is actually not for yourself.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's interesting, is that you take a selfie with the intention of sharing it.
Yeah.
So when you're taking the selfie, it's actually not selfie. It's everybody else.
It's a Foryouzie.
Yeah, because
It's a Foryouzie.
It's a Foryouzie.
It's a Foryouzie.
Yeah.